This is not a time to have anyone criticize Puerto Rico or Latinos. This is not a time for them to get overly masculine with this bromance thing that they've got going. 53% of the electorate are women. Women will vote. They care about how they're being talked to, and they care about the issues. They need to remember that. This is a time of discipline, and this is a time of addition. I think it's harmful. I mean, look, there's no reason to have a comedian at an election campaign event that had so much energy and so many good issues. Why have a comedian that separates people? This isn't about people being sensitive. I mean, Puerto Ricans, that's personal for them. They take that personally. So they were right to denounce the comedian. They need to go and tell Puerto Ricans how much, they do value them. They need to tell Latinos that, but they also need to look at how they're talking about women. I mean, this bromance and this masculinity stuff, I mean, it borders on edgy to the point that it's going to make women uncomfortable.
Well, I can point to another point that Nikki Haley was talking about, where women feel uncomfortable sometimes when Trump talks about them, to them, especially after the overturning of Roe. But at this women's town hall that was hosted by Fox, and it was the most luxurious and comfortable environment for him. He was not going to get a hard question. He was not going to get someone who disagreed with him. He was not going to be held accountable on anything. And he was asked about IVF. And in the course of 30 seconds, well, he starts out by saying, I'm the father of IVF, and as sort of a joke, but everyone was like, and then he starts talking about how a very attractive senator, a very, hot woman called him, is what his insinuation was. To teach him about IVF, and now he knows so much about IVF. I mean, I don't know how disconnected you could be from the very voters who are scared to death, people who depend on IVF to be able to have a family, and of course the health care they need.
Yeah, I think everything that Nikki Haley said in that clip is something that would be worth the Trump campaign listening to. I mean, the fact that she also said a little bit earlier in the interview that she has not spoken to Donald Trump since early June, and yet she described herself as being on standby. I mean, this is somebody who took 20% of Republican votes in many of the primary states, even when she was no longer in the race.
Right.
So there are a chunk of Republican voters who it would do Donald Trump's campaign very well to try to pursue. They haven't even lifted up the phone. And as she says, she's waiting. She is waiting to try and work for the campaign. I thought what she pushed back on there, because you've already heard some Trump people saying, oh, well, can't we even make a joke anymore about the Madison Square Garden comedian? And the way she pushed back and said, this isn't a joke. People feel very sensitive about this. This matters to them. Imagine if somebody called your state or your hometown or your country and denigrated it in the way it was. And I thought the point she made saying, look, if this went too far, all they needed to do was apologize, and then saying women are not liking what they're hearing. They don't like this hyper-masculinity. The way Donald Trump is reposting things on Truth Social saying manhood is under attack. There's no manhood under attack. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's going to alienate.
Again, Willie, I have not met one alpha male who doesn't want to take care of his wife and daughters in every way possible and wants every bit of health care available to them to save their lives. I don't know one.
And I would submit the Republican leaders who scurry around behind Donald Trump calling themselves alphas, that's the definition of a beta, doing whatever you're told by another guy. Caddy is so right that Nikki Haley said, Donald Trump has not called me since June, sort of like throwing up a red flag and saying it's actually political malpractice. It's actually insane. In races in some of these states that might be decided in 4 digits, in the thousands of votes, not to court Nikki Haley's voters. But his ego is such that he can't bring himself to do that. And one last thing, she said, and others have said, well, it was about this one joke from this comedian. We need to condemn that. It wasn't one joke from one comedian. That entire night and the entire thesis of Donald Trump's campaign is divisiveness, is ugliness, is that kind of rhetoric. So it's being pinned. That was a terrible joke by that one comedian. But come on, it was the entire night.
And Joe,
it was the entire night. I love how they are trying to break it down to one. After you get past the Trump rally talking about Puerto Ricans being garbage, you then have the comedian finding a black man in the crowd talking about watermelon, and watermelons. You have one of Donald Trump's aides that are going to be helping run his administration, channeling Hitler, who said Germany for Germans. And now, of course, Stephen Miller saying America for Americans, which, of course, is fascinating. Again, contrast that with Ronald Reagan's farewell address. And it's just really stark. I did think, though, Mike, that is, you listen to what Kamala Harris said last night. Mika's been talking an awful lot about women's health care choices and women who are left to bleed out, women who are left without medical care, women who are in crisis, who are given Post-it notes about going to other states and the addresses instead of doctors right there trying to save their lives.
Yes.
And I thought it was wonderful last night, Kamala Harris saying something that would really appeal to libertarians/conservatives when she said, listen, we all have different faiths and we're all going to look at these issues differently because of our different faiths. Or maybe we read the Bible and look at issues from two different vantage points. But regardless of our faiths, regardless of our backgrounds, no American should want their health care choices, their wives' health care choices, governed by the government. It should be up to individual people and their beliefs based on their faith, based on their life, based on their beliefs, based on their experiences.
Their doctor.
Well, I mean, that gets back to the all-encompassing word freedom that was posted on signs throughout the rally last night as Kamala Harris spoke. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Joe. I mean, the freedom, to make your own choices is under peril. And one of the interesting aspects of it certainly is going to be the weight of this issue in terms of women coming out to vote. I had a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, who knows Nebraska intimately, telling me the other night that the Democratic district in Nebraska, the famous just single district in Nebraska, Kamala Harris is 12 points up in the polls, due largely to the influx, the flood of women voters. And the whole aspect of what we've just been talking about here this morning, including Willie's referencing the interview with Sean Hannity last night, it occurred to me maybe more Americans should ask themselves a simple question about Donald Trump. Have you ever heard Donald Trump say the following words? I'm sorry. Never.